So TEP, we're broadcasting right here on 910 AM Superstation, WFDF, the Future Radio. And for those that were listening, about an hour ago, I was on Charlene Mitchell's show right here on 910 AM Superstation, WFDF, Mind Your Business. And I was on with Sturge Moreland and attorney Todd Perkins, and we were discussing this trial and also the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. I had to cut out early because I had to get ready for this show. So today was day 5 in the Michael-Bryan murder trial in the killing of Ahmaud Arbery. So we'll talk about what happened in court today. The homeowner who owned the home on Satilla Drive, the home that Ahmaud Arbery was seen on security camera looking through, the home that was under construction. His name is Larry English Jr. Larry English Jr. testified today. And one of the things that he testified to is that he did not ask the McMichaels to help secure his property. He did not ask the McMichaels to help secure his property. He also said that Ahmaud Arbery had not taken anything from his house or his boat. So we'll talk about that. Now, also something very interesting in court happened today. Kevin Gow, defense attorney for William Roddy Bryan, Kevin Gow complained about Reverend Al Sharpton being in court, sitting with the family of Ahmaud Arbery. And a defense attorney, Kevin Gow, said, we don't want any more black pastors coming in here. We don't want any more black pastors coming in here. And then he made reference to Reverend Jesse Jackson, and as if he thought Reverend Jesse Jackson had been in court, but it was actually Reverend William Barber III. And he's complaining about African-American high-profile African-American pastors, and he said that they could end up putting pressure on the jury. Well, there's only one African-American on the jury, so who do you think they're going to put pressure on? But they're not there to put pressure on the jury. They're there to support the family. But it's just very interesting how all this is unfolding. We don't want any more black pastors coming in here. Okay. Now, I wonder if it would be all right if white pastors came in to sit with the family. Would that be okay? I'm not sure. So we'll talk about that on today's show, and then we'll continue our discussion dealing with Biden's $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill and how it will impact the African-American community, how it will positively impact the African-American community. We know Biden was in Baltimore yesterday promoting the benefits of the infrastructure bill, talking about the infrastructure bill, and he has to go all across the country and talk about the infrastructure bill, what's in it and how it's going to help people. He should go into some poor white areas also, like in Kentucky and in Virginia and West Virginia and Georgia. He should go in rural areas and explain to them how it's going to help them, even though a lot of Republicans, even though most Republicans voted against the bill. You had 19 Republicans in the Senate who voted for the bill because it was a bipartisan bill. You had some moderate Democrats and some Republicans in the Senate put together the bill. And then you had 13 Republicans out of about 212 in the House who voted for the bill. Okay. So we'll talk about the infrastructure bill some more. Representative James Clyburn was on the Black News Channel yesterday. I'm going to share that interview with you. We're going to try to squeeze that interview in also. You know, we've been talking about how racism has historically been a part of infrastructure, especially when it came to highways and how expressways, highways were used to destroy the African American community. And Secretary Pete Buttigieg on Monday was speaking at the White House White House press briefing, Monday, November 8th, and he talked about some of that history. He's getting backlash, as we've been talking about the past couple of days, and we shared his comments. He's been getting backlash from conservatives, getting backlash from Republicans. Senator Ted Cruz, Tucker Carlson, Geraldo Rivera, and others are attacking him for talking about this history of racism when it comes to infrastructure. Okay, so we'll discuss that. Now, in the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct your own behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events, history, politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, Kemet, the 22828. To sign up for our email newsletter, text the word Kemet, Kemet, the 22828. To sign up for our email newsletter, also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Okay, I want to jump into this first story quickly before the break here. We're gonna go to clip one, Shakita. We're gonna go to clip one from NBC Nightly News. New surveillance video in trial over killing of Ahmaud Arbery. Home security footage and 911 calls were played for the jury in the murder trial of Gregory McMichael, Travis McMichael, and William Bryan. The defense argues the three men were trying to place Ahmaud Arbery under citizen's arrest. Let's go to this clip.
A homeowner's 911 call after seeing someone on his home security camera in the neighborhood where Ahmaud Arbery was killed. The video from 5 months before the fatal encounter. Attorneys for the three men accused of murder say it was Arbery, one of at least 4 times he was seen in the house under construction. As the defense tries to convince the jury, Arbery was not an innocent jogger, but rather a suspicious figure the defendants were trying to place under citizen's arrest, and who defendant Travis McMichael already had come face-to-face with near that same house under construction. The jury hearing McMichael's 911 call 12 days before he shot and killed Arbery, he says in self-defense.
When I turned around and saw him and backed up, he reached into his pocket and ran into the house. So I don't know if he's armed or not.
Arbery's family has said he stopped at the construction site because he wanted to learn how to build a home for his parents. Prosecutors showed the jury video of several other people at the location while questioning the owner about whether Arbery ever stole anything. Prosecutors say the defendants had no reason to chase Arbery on the day in question, while asking a police officer to read part of one of the defendants' first interviews.
What does Greg McMichael say on lines 3 through 6?
He was trapped like a rat.
Testimony expected to continue with more police officers quoting their interrogations of the defendants. Prosecutors try to use their own words to convict them.
Okay, we'll continue this other side of the break. Listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. Stand by. Stand by, everybody. How's everybody doing? Share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Stand by. Back from break in 3 minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 2 minutes. Back from break in 1 minute. Stand by.
Michael Imhotep and the African History Network show. We deal with current events in history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Unfortunately, many people confuse what racism is. Racism is a power structure. It was laws and policies that put us in this predicament. There's going to be laws and policies that take us out. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the compass of his or her actions because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. We have it all on 910 AM Superstation.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Thursday, November 11th, 2021, and we are live. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. Okay, right before the break, we were talking about what happened in the McMichael-Bryan trial today, day number 5, in the killing of Ahmaud Arbery. And you heard some testimony from Larry English. Larry English is the homeowner that owns the home on Satilla Drive that was under construction that Ahmaud Arbery was seen on camera walking through. Okay. Now, I want to go back to this article here from CNN. Homeowner who called 911. Homeowner who called 911 about people at site in months before Arbery's killing testified he did not ask the McMichaels to help secure his property. Testified he did not ask the McMichaels to help secure his property. Now, this is Larry English Jr. We're going to go to clip 2, Shakita, in just a minute here. Prosecutors in the trial of the 3 white men charged in Ahmaud Arbery's killing played for jurors on Thursday, November 11th, a recorded deposition of a man who owned the under construction home that has been central in the focus of the case. Larry English Jr. testified in the September 24th deposition that surveillance footage at his property near Brunswick, Georgia, captured people on the property several times in late 2019, early 2020. And in some instances, he called 911 about the intrusions. One intrusion, he said, it was a colored guy. This is, I mean, we see racism all throughout this trial, okay? From when I was on Charlene Mitchell's show right before my show on 9:10 a.m. WFDF, I talked about how the citizens arrest law that they're claiming, McMichael and Brian, they're claiming they were trying to make a citizen's arrest. They didn't tell Ahmaud that, and they didn't tell police who came to the scene. They didn't tell them they were trying to effectuate a citizen's arrest. But that citizen's arrest law dates back to 1863 in Georgia, when Georgia was part of the Confederacy, and it was a law targeting fugitive slaves, runaway slaves running away from Georgia plantations who were running behind Union lines. That's the origin of that 1863 law, that citizen's arrest law. Now, Larry English Jr. previously told the court that a serious medical condition prevented him from testifying in person. Now, Larry English Jr. said he had installed cameras around the home that he was able to monitor using an app on his phone. In late October 2019, Larry English Jr. made a call to authorities to report an individual on his property whom he described as a colored guy. This is actually what he said when he called 911. So when you listen to these people, okay, you have Travis McMichael, the son. He has a Confederate battle flag vanity plate on his car. It's a license plate similar to the Georgia state flag that had the Confederate battle flag in it, and so that flag had the Confederate, but the Georgia state flag existed from the 1950s to about 2001 with the Confederate battle flag on it. You have that. You have this 1863 Civil War era Confederate fugitive slave law. You have Larry English Jr. referring to an African American calling the police about somebody in his property under construction with no windows and no doors, referring to them as a colored guy. As a color, what color were they? White? What color were they? White? You have all this, and then you have defense attorney Kevin Gall today saying he didn't want any more black pastors showing up. So he described him, Larry English Jr. described him as a colored guy, got really curly looking hair, end quote, with tattoos, who was just pondering around, end quote. He didn't say he was plundering, like one of the defense attorneys said during opening statements. He didn't say he was plundering. He said pondering around, and asked for a deputy to go to the property. Now, he called authorities again when he saw a white couple entering his property on November 17th, 2019. Now, did Travis McMichael and his father, Gregory McMichael, and William Bryan, did they chase down this white couple because they saw them on camera? Did they chase down? I'm just curious. Did they chase down this white couple? Did they hunt them down and they say, hey, we want to talk to you? Did they chase them down with guns? So Larry English did see a white couple and call the police. He saw a white couple entering his property on November 17, 2019, telling the dispatcher that, quote, we had some stuff stolen about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago there, end quote. Larry English Jr. called back a day later, telling authorities that he saw at the construction site the, quote, same guy that was over there about a week and a half 2 weeks ago, end quote. Also, there was no sign saying no trespassing. Maybe you should have put a sign up said no trespassing, stay out. this site is under surveillance. We'll call the police. No trespassing. They entered video showing numerous people going onto the site, looking around. Show children going onto the site, looking around. Things like this. None of them were chased down that we know of. None of them were chased down. None of them were killed that we know of. I don't think. We probably would have heard about it. If white people were chased down and killed, we probably know about it. None of that happened. Now, English was asked whether anything was ever taken from his construction site, to which he responded, quote, "Not that I know of," end quote. Not that I know of. All right, now, the defendants are charged with malice and felony murder in the connection with the killing of Ahmaud Arbery. They also face charges of aggravated assault, false imprisonment, and criminal attempt to commit false imprisonment. They have pleaded not guilty to all charges. If convicted, each man could face life in prison with the possibility of parole. Now, Ahmaud Arbery's family said he was out for a jog when he was shot and killed. Cell phone video of the episode surfaced more than 2 months later, sparking widespread public outrage. Now, as we continue here, let me go to this clip here. Okay, so defense attorneys contend their clients were trying to conduct a lawful citizen's arrest, whom they suspect of Ahmaud Arbery, whom they suspected of burglary, after they and several neighbors became concerned about people entering Larry English's under construction home. The defense contends Travis McMichael shot Ahmaud Arbery in self-defense. Now, the confrontation came minutes after a neighbor called police to say Ahmaud Arbery was at Larry English's property that afternoon. Gregory McMichael, investigators testified, said he initiated the pursuit after seeing Ahmaud Arbery speedily run by McMichael's home. Okay, now, Larry, in his deposition, Larry English testified that other than police, he only ever gave one person permission to check his property. Other than police, he only ever gave one person permission to check his property, a man who lives near the site but is not one of the defendants. That man had offered to do so. So Larry English said after texting to him that he had heard about intrusions at the property. Quote, "At any point, did you ever authorize the McMichaels to confront anybody on your site? At any point, did you ever authorize the McMichaels to confront anybody on your site?" Prosecutor Paul Camarillo said during the deposition. Larry English Jr. replied, no. He replied, no, he did not give the McMichaels permission. He did not authorize them to confront anybody on his site. We're coming up on a break. We'll continue this on the other side of the break. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Stand by, everybody. Okay, who still needs to register for the 10-week online courses that I teach on Saturday and Sundays? From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. On Saturday, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's a 10-week online course. We deal with some of the historical events leading up to the Civil War movement. I mean, to the Civil War, and then we go through look at Civil War, Reconstruction, Jim Crow era, Black Power movement, Civil Rights movement, Great Migration. We do this class live. All the sessions are recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Even after the 10-week online course is over with, you can still watch the full class. Back from break in 2 minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 2 minutes. Okay. Stand by, everybody.
The Superstation, Detroit's only African-American talk radio.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation. I'm Michael Imhotep. It is Thursday, November 11th, 2021, and we are live. Okay, right before the break, we were talking about what happened in day 5 of the Michael-Bryan trial in the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. And Larry English, who owns the house that was under construction, that is at the center of this case, he testified today in court through a deposition recorded on September 24th. And one of the things he testified to is nothing was stolen from his home. 1, 2, that he did not give permission to the McMichaels to confront anybody at his site, at his property. Okay. Now, Prosecutor Paul Camarillo also asked whether Larry English Jr. had given the McMichaels permission to go onto the property. Okay, whether he had given the McMichaels permission to go onto the property, or whether he had told them they could not go on the property. Larry English answered no to both questions. He added that he never posted surveillance videos of his site to social media, but said he may have shown them to neighborhood resident Matt Albanese, who testified this week also. Matt Albanese testified on Wednesday. Albanese testified that he called police on the day of Ahmaud Arbery's killing to say that a man later identified as Ahmaud Arbery was at English's property. English said he had met Travis McMichael once and that he had spoken to Gregory McMichael and his wife at least once before the shooting. Prosecutor Camarillo asked English whether he had told the McMichaels about any incidents at his house. He said, quote, probably, but I'm not sure. Probably, but I'm not sure. All right, now, we also know that defense attorneys' comments sparked outrage, and those were comments from Kevin Gow, defense attorney for William Bryan, and it came to saying no more black pastors. They didn't want any more black pastors sitting in the courtroom, especially in support of the family, sitting with the family. Quote, if we're going to start a precedent where we're going to bring high-profile members of the African-American community into the courtroom to sit with the family during the trial in the presence of the jury, I believe that's intimidating, and it's an attempt to pressure, end quote, Kevin Gao told the court following a lunch break. Quote, could be consciously or unconsciously an attempt to pressure or influence the jury, end quote. Shakita, we're going to go to clip 3 from the Rachel Maddow show. Reverend Al Sharpton, who you hear Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on 910 a.m. Superstation WFDF. Keeping it real. He was on the Rachel Maddow show to talk about what took place. We're going to go to clip 3 just a minute here, Shakita. If we look at this article here from NBC News, defense attorney in Ahmaud Arbery shooting trial objects to Reverend Al Sharpton's presence in court. Quote, we don't want any more black pastors coming in here, end quote. This is actually what Kevin Gao said. Okay. Let's go to clip 3, Shakita.
Only the folk in Brunswick and Georgia are watching and are concerned. We are here from all over the country because not only are those 3 on trial, but Georgia law is on trial. Have you grown from the days of Lester Madison? Have you grown from the days of lynching?
Yes.
Have you grown from the days where people can, because of who they are and what they are, can be tried by a posse, and then they turn around and say they're defending themselves. Talking about he was afraid for his little 5-year-old. What about the 5-year-olds that are afraid now to jog in Brunswick? What about the young black kids that are now saying that if they kill me, they're going to stack the jury and walk? That's why we're in Brunswick.
Yesterday, the Reverend Al Sharpton held a press conference and then a prayer vigil outside the courtroom where 3 men are on trial for killing Ahmaud Arbery. Mr. Arbery's family invited Reverend Sharpton to lead that prayer vigil, and then they invited him to sit in court to watch the proceedings, which are open to the public. Today, remarkably, one of the defense attorneys for one of the defendants took issue with Reverend Sharpton's presence in the courtroom, and he did so in a shocking way.
And the idea that we're going to be serially bringing these people in to sit with the victim's family one after another, obviously there's only so many pastors they can have. And if their pastor's Al Sharpton right now, that's fine, but then that's it. We don't want any more black pastors coming in here or other Jesse Jackson, whoever was in here earlier this week, sitting with the victim's family trying to influence the jury in this case.
We don't want any more black pastors coming in here. You see other people in the courtroom react when he says that. It does not seem to have been a slip of the tongue. He carries on. He's making this deliberate argument. We don't want any more black pastors coming in here. Jesse Jackson, whoever it was, how can you tell? We don't want any more black pastors. The judge responded, quote, everybody complied with this court's rulings on sitting in this courtroom and listening to the evidence. I don't hear emotion, and I will tell you this. I am not going to blanketly exclude members of the public from this courtroom, let alone have some sort of no black pastors rule, as the defense attorney would ask the judge to enforce. Joining us now is Reverend Al Sharpton. He's president of National Action Network. He's, of course, the host of MSNBC's Politics Nation. Reverend Sharpton, Al, it's great to see you. Thanks for making time to be here tonight.
Thank you, Rachel.
What should we understand about the dynamic at work here? I think the soundbite itself, there are cameras in the courtroom. The soundbite itself from that defense attorney has more than gone viral, has rocketed around the country. I think a lot of people are just jaws dropped at it. Can you give us context and tell us what is going on here, what led to that, and what you think this means?
Well, I think, first of all, what led to it is as soon after the killing of Ahmaud Arbery. The family and the attorneys talked with me. Both the father and mother did Politics Nation, my show, even before the videotape came out, because that's the kind of work we do. That's not only my activism, that's my ministry. And we've been supportive of them. Just 3 weeks ago, I preached at a church in Savannah, Georgia. Both the mother and father came, and we had prayer, and they publicly asked that I come to the trial. And I did, and I had a prayer vigil. I made my statement outside of my concern about the racial makeup of the jury. In a city that's 55% black, there's only one black on the jury of 12. Less than 10% of the jury is black. And I raised that concern. And then the families allowed one person in with them, one with the mother, one with the father. And I assume the defense families who are seated in front of them in the court bring in who they want. They brought me in with them, as well as the one other person with who came in with the mother. And then today, this outburst. I think what is striking about it is the kind of arrogant insensitivity that the family has the right to choose who they want to sit with them. You must understand the setting. They're sitting in a courtroom looking at the three men that killed their son and the families of those men sitting there. That is a very tense and trying situation for a mother and a father to sit with. And if they want a minister there, someone to console them, someone to be there with them that's been with them since the incident started, that is their choice. But he didn't just say that he didn't want a public figure or something. He said black pastors. So if it was white pastors, is it all right? How do we know if pastors are not sitting with the defendant's family? I think that he was very telling in his specifying black pastors, and I think this is an outrage, and I think it is absolutely insulting to all people, regardless of their feelings on this case. For him to say that in a court of law, given this kind of case, is startling, but also revealing.
Rev, we also had a defense lawyer in this case tell the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, even after, I mean, the jury, as you said, it's a 12-member jury, and it is there's one non-white person on the jury. There's one black juror and 11 who are not, despite the racial makeup of the community in which from which this jury was drawn. Nevertheless, we had a defense lawyer in this case, tell the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that this jury needed more, quote, Bubbas or Joe Sixpacks, which would also seem to be something that had a racial implication in terms of what he's asking for, even with, he said, blue collar Bubbas or Joe Sixpacks, other jurors who look like Brian, who look like one of the white defendants. It does feel like this is sort of saying the quiet part out loud. And given how blunt the defense counsel is being here and their sort of racial appeals, I have to ask you if you think it is affecting the jury, if you think it is affecting the judge, if you think it's affecting the conduct of the trial.
I think it should. I do not know what is affecting the jury, but certainly I think anyone should say, what are you saying here? Clearly the actual killing, 3 white men taking upon themselves to try, convict, and execute a young man they claim they thought was engaged in a robbery. He's jogging. You clearly can see he's unarmed. He definitely was unarmed. And they took it upon themselves to take his life, not to arrest him, not to call police to arrest him and try to hold him till they get there. They shot and killed him. So there's race all the way through this. And I think it is telling when he says we need more Bubbas on the jury. The jury is 11-1 white to black in a town that is majority black with a black mayor. And now he says specifically, I want to ban black pastors from coming in. If there's racism front and center, he has certainly made that the case. We want to see justice, and I think that justice will be what we hope and we pray for. But to set a precedent, and I salute this judge for not feeding into it either way so far, but to set a precedent that you can exclude people based on their race, black pastors, and what they're there for, I think is something that should be alarming to people all over this country that go to court seeking justice and balance and want to see the victim's family to be able to choose who they want to console them, whether they're nationally known or not.
Hey, pause it right there, Shakita. We're coming up on a break. Everybody stand by. You listen to the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 2 minutes. How's everybody doing? Share this broadcasting on social media platforms. Stand by. You can support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. Stand by. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation. I'm Michael Imhotep. Okay, so right before the break, we were talking about the comments from defense attorney Kevin Gow today in court saying we don't want any more black pastors. If you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. We're here 6 days a week. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting. You can also go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, click on the yellow donate button, and you can also right on the homepage of our website, you can register for the online courses I teach on Saturdays and Sundays dealing with history. Okay, so check out that article from CNN that we had up. We don't want any more black pastors. There's an article from CNN, also one from NBC News. Okay, we don't want any more black pastors coming in here, says defense attorney in Arbery death trial. That's from CNN.com. Okay, now very quickly here, Shakita, we're going to go to clip 4. We're going to go to clip 4. President Biden was in Baltimore on Wednesday, November 10th, touting the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill and we talked about this. We've been talking about this all week, and how it would impact the African American community. But we've also been dealing with a history of systemic racism when it comes to infrastructure. Okay, let's go to this clip from channel a Baltimore CBS affiliate. Let's go to this clip, Shakita, clip number 4. Okay, I think you had to take it off mute or. Baltimore, President Biden touts infrastructure bill during visit to Port of Baltimore. Hell. All right, hold on. Okay, go.
More as
All
a
right.
backdrop, President Biden touted some of his key campaign promises, everything from repairing aging roadways and better public transportation to fixing the supply chain crisis. Welcome to WJZ News at 11, and to all of you streaming tonight, I'm Vic Carter.
And I'm Rick Ritter. Now, look, we are paying more for just about everything these days. And tonight, all eyes, yes, on the president as he tries to fix the problem and keep more cash in your wallet.
So part of his $1 trillion infrastructure bill, which includes $17 billion to revitalize coastal, inland, and land ports. WJZ is live. Annie Rose Ramos breaks down what's inside this massive bill, how it could impact you. Annie Rose.
Well, Vic and Rick, people have some real concerns about inflation, along with their public transportation and their internet access. But President Biden addressed all of these things and promised this new deal will build a better tomorrow. Now, I also spoke with Congressman Mfume, who says the president's visit to Baltimore, along with his remarks, brings a message of hope.
Everything from a gallon of gas to a loaf of bread costs more, and it's worse.
With rising prices comes rising concerns.
People are concerned about inflation. I know I am.
That's why President Biden addressed it head-on Wednesday in Baltimore, assuring the new infrastructure deal will help get costs under control.
This bill is going to reduce the cost of goods to consumers. This is going to bring inflation down, not up.
The bill includes $17 billion to modernize ports and strengthen the nation's supply chains. The Port of Baltimore will get $125 million in upgrades.
Here in Baltimore, you've got a port that's older than America itself.
The deal also offers billions of dollars to fix aging roadways and bridges.
The amount of money people spend in car repairs every month and every year because of the potholes and the cracked conditions.
And nearly
like in Detroit
will be going to public transportation.
We got one of the poorest systems in Baltimore.
It's news Anthony Johnson was happy to hear. He travels 3 miles on the bus and feels it takes him far too long.
If I catch everything on time, about an hour.
Another $100 million will be set aside for internet connectivity.
For communities like at Cherry Hill, many of the residents don't have even basic internet.
Alexandria's organization Elevate works to bring broadband to Baltimore's Cherry Hill neighborhood. She hopes this deal will pave the way for better Wi-Fi.
With this sort of infrastructure bill, the priorities are redefined for communities of color.
A new beginning for a country where things have gotten a little old.
Where you've got all these things that don't work, that are rusted, that are falling apart, that are breaking down. We're going to build a better America.
Now, Rick, the president also said he spoke with CEOs of major retailers like Walmart and Target, along with freight movers, including UPS and FedEx, who assured him that shelves will be stocked this holiday season. Reporting live at 11, I'm Annie Rose Ramos for WJZ.
Okay, so that was Biden in Baltimore on Wednesday. Very quickly here. So read the piece here from the Washington Post. What's in the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill? It's going to have a big impact on the African American community all across the country. Those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching for a few more minutes. We're going to squeeze in this interview that Representative James Clyburn did with Charles Blow on Prime on the Black News Channel. And Representative Clyburn is talking about the infrastructure bill and how it will impact positively the African American community. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Right on the homepage, you can register for the online courses I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. Saturdays is from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. So next class is Saturday, November 13th, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then on Sundays, I teach ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Ancient Kemet, one of the original names for Egypt. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Next class is Sunday, November 14th. Classes are on sale now, $80. As soon as you register, you can watch the classes we already done. You can watch the class you just did last weekend, and you can watch them around the world. And even after the classes are over with, you can still go back and watch the entire course. All right, we have to get out of here. Those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching. We'll keep broadcasting for a few more minutes. Remember, right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win Wakanda forever. And I'll be on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday. Okay, and we'll talk about it on our Sunday show. Sundays, you know, we're on 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm a panelist on Roland Martin Unfiltered, usually every Friday. So I'll be back on this Friday. Right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. All right, stand by, everybody. Stand by. Okay, let's go to this. I want to go to this clip here from the Black News Channel. It was a good interview dealing with continuing our discussion, dealing with the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill that we've been talking about all week, and dealing with a history of racism when it comes to infrastructure and highways and the U.S. Interstate Highway Acts of 1952 and 1956 that drove 41,000 miles of U.S. interstate highway all across the country. And we went through about 1,600 African-American communities, wiping out businesses and homes that we owned. We know Secretary Buttigieg was at a White House press briefing on Monday, November 8th. And he talked about the racism that was built into the roadways, etc., and a history of discrimination and systemic racism when it comes to infrastructure. Secretary Buttigieg said, quote, "I'm still surprised that some people were surprised when I pointed to the fact that if a highway was built for the purpose of dividing a white and black neighborhood, or if an underpass was constructed such that a bus carrying mostly black and Puerto Rican kids to a beach, or that would have been in New York, was designed too low for it to pass by, that obviously reflects racism that went into those design choices," end quote. Okay. And Secretary Buttigieg, Secretary of Transportation, went on to say, "I don't think we have anything to lose by confronting that simple reality. And I think we have everything to gain by acknowledging it and then dealing with it," end quote. Now, Buttigieg's willingness to confront this simple reality sparked immediate pushback from idiot conservatives, idiots on the right, like Republican Senator Ted Cruz, who'd rather pick fights with Big Bird over Big Bird getting vaccinated, and Big Bird doesn't exist. Okay. He'd rather pick fights with Big Bird and culture wars and things like this, as opposed to passing meaningful legislation, because Senator Ted Cruz voted against the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill, even though it's going to greatly benefit people in Texas. Senator Ted Cruz tweeted, "The roads are racist." Then he sarcastically wrote, "We must get rid of roads. We must get rid of roads." No, we need to get rid of idiots like you, Senator Ted Cruz, who enable white supremacists. Now, the problem, one of them anyway, is that Secretary Buttigieg was correct. And this is from MSNBC.com, the Rachel Maddow blog. Joanne Reed's blog has a similar article dealing with this. I just haven't had a chance to pull hers up yet. Joanne Reed on her blog on MSNBC, they have a article dealing with this and talking about some of the history in racism, systemic racism when it comes to transportation and highways. We dealt with this a number of times here on this show. A Washington Post analysis explained yesterday, which would have been November 8th, Monday, November 8th. The Washington Post analysis explained the Secretary Buttigieg was referring to a story from Robert Caro's book, The Power Broker, a book that is generally recognized as one of the premier examples of journalism in modern American history. The book centers on Robert Moses, a mid-century New York City official. Robert Moses, a mid-century New York City official who set out to reshape how the city of New York's residents moved mostly successfully. In that book, Robert Caro describes one particular goal of Robert Moses: keeping poor Black people from busing to Long Island's Jones Beach. Keeping poor Black people from busing to Long Island's Jones Beach. Now, Robert Moses quite deliberately and for entirely racist reasons created a system to discourage Black and Puerto Rican kids from visiting Jones Beach, in part by building parkway bridges so low that buses could not fit below them. In part by building parkway bridges so low that buses could not fit below them. What's more, as the Washington Post report added, quote, buses needed permits to enter parks, permits that were often denied to those bringing Black residents to Jones Beach. So here we see how politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources. And we see how laws are used to lock people out of opportunities and maldistribute opportunities to certain groups of people. We're seeing this here with the laws, and there's a deep, rich history in how systemic racism is encoded or codified into infrastructure policy. The article that we dealt with a few months ago when it came out, bulldozed and bisected by NBC News, is a deep analysis into this history. Okay, bulldozed and bisected. A legacy of inequality. Will their removal heal historic wounds? A legacy, bulldozed and bisected. Highway construction built a legacy of inequality. Will their removal heal historic wounds? And then it goes in and talks about the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956, and it was drove 41,000 miles of interstate highways across the country. It goes through from 57 to 1977. The program displaced over 475,000 households and 1 million people. According to the U.S. Department of Transportation, it runs through about 1,600 African-American communities, destroying homes and businesses that we owned. Okay. So this is a deep analysis of this history. Okay, so on the Black News Channel on Wednesday, November 10th, Charles Blow spoke with Representative James Clyburn about the infrastructure bill and about Build Back Better and how both of them will impact the African American community. Let's go to that clip.
President Biden made the first stop today in Baltimore on his national tour to promote his infrastructure plan. He's scheduled to sign the bill into law on Monday. The president said his plan would improve the transportation of products and supplies across the country, easing prices for consumers while adding unionized jobs. While Democrats celebrate the passage of the infrastructure bill, questions remain about whether Build Back Better will also pass. Earlier today, I had the opportunity to speak with Representative Jim Clyburn about that and the current status of the George Floyd Policing Act. Here's what he said. Democrats have something to celebrate. You have just passed the infrastructure bill that Biden put as his part one of his kind of project for America. But Biden is in a bit of trouble. Latest polls show his approval rating is now down to 38%. It is the lowest at this point in his presidency of any modern president except Donald Trump. What do you think passing the infrastructure bill will do for Democrats and for Biden himself in terms of the public perception of them? And what does this low approval rating portend for the hard road ahead for the second piece of his agenda, which is the Build Back Better plan?
Well, thank you very much for having me. First of all, Build Back Better is the third piece. This is the second piece. The first piece was the American Rescue Act, and we passed that bill. And that bill rescued families. That bill cut tax on people, families with children. If they didn't do anything else, getting over half of the children out of poverty is a big deal. Now, it may not be a big deal for people who don't have to worry about health care and getting their children their certain items for school, etc. But that was the first thing. This was the second thing. Now, the reason you said this is the first thing rather than the second thing is because we did not message the American Rescue Act properly. And I fail to understand that because Joe Biden has often said one of the reasons that things went wrong with the Affordable Care Act is they didn't go out and tell people what we had done. But we just did not tell people what we did with the American Rescue Act. I hope we don't make the same mistake with this bill. It's a big bill, and it's a good bill. $65 billion for broadband by itself would make this bill worth doing. And to look at all the roads and the bridges and the water and the sewage and the other ports and rails improvements that's going to occur all over Columbia, South Carolina today, people are talking about the fact that when this bill passed, the governor announced himself, I now have the money to fix malfunction junction that's been a plague on the Columbia citizens for almost 30 years. So he is doing the message we better message too. And I believe you see these numbers turn around if we do that. But if you sit back like we did with the Affordable Care Act, we lost 63 seats, Democrats did, over the Affordable Care Act because we didn't bother to tell people what we had done.
Okay, so very quickly here, early on the American Rescue Plan that we've talked about a lot here on this show, cut childhood poverty in half. It had the stimulus checks in it. It had HBCUs, over 20 HBCUs are taking money from the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, paying off student debt. We've talked about all that here on this show before. African Americans were taking money from the stimulus checks and starting businesses. You had another round of small business loans, and if you maintained your employees, didn't lay off employees, the loans turned to grants, etc. It passed in early March 2021. I think it was March 6, 2021. Less than 2 months after the traitor-in-chief, Benedict Donald, was evicted from the White House. Early on, after it passed, Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris did a victory tour, and they were talking about it and visiting the different cities, talking about the bill and how it's going to impact people, how it's going to help people. But then that messaging stopped. And Representative James Clyburn is correct, as I've said numerous times before. That was the first big bill. People who obviously don't follow politics and say Democrats haven't accomplished anything. Either you have amnesia or don't read or don't follow politics. That's not true. The Earned Child Tax Credit has cut child poverty in half. That's in that bill. No Republicans in the House or the Senate voted for the bill. We've dealt with the fact sheet from the American Rescue Plan here before. This is why messaging is so important, because a lot of people know that they're getting the Earned Child Tax Credit deposited into their bank accounts each month, but don't know it's because of Democrats and Joe Biden, and no Republicans in the House or the Senate voted for the bill. It's like 212 Republicans voted no in the House of Representatives, and all 50 voted no in the Senate. This is something that you should run on. This is, like I said on Roland Martin Unfiltered last Friday, this is something that Terry McAuliffe should have ran on in Virginia. He ran a weak campaign, number one. He ran a horrible campaign. Glenn Youngkin won, the Republican. Terry McAuliffe ran a horrible campaign. This is a bill that he should have been running on. It had $46.5 billion in aid for renters and landlords to stay in their homes and to pay the mortgages on rental property. Okay, that was in the bill. No Republicans voted for the bill. Let me pull up this fact sheet here from the American Rescue Plan. It's at whitehouse.gov. At whitehouse.gov, where a lot of these fact sheets are. You can read them. You don't have to take my word for it. Proper documentation ends all conversation. You can go through and read it. So early on, they were messaging and talking about it, but then it stopped. They got, and you're dealing with different crises, but they stopped. They need to keep talking about what's in it and messaging, because a lot of people don't associate this bill with Biden and Democrats, because this was the third of the coronavirus bill. So they just associate this with the previous two coronavirus bills that happened under the Trump administration. You have to brand this, you have to claim it, and constantly message to people what you've done and how these policies are positively impacting them. Okay, now, and then the other thing that's important to note, yes, low polls for Biden, but the polls that they're citing were taken, those polls were, so the latest one was through November 3rd through November 5th, I think it was. It was taken before the infrastructure bill passed, because the infrastructure bill passed late. It was something like 10 p.m. November 5th. So when you look at the polls are a snapshot in time. You have to look at when the poll was taken. Those polls were taken before the infrastructure bill passed. Okay, so when we look at the polls, you have to look at when it was taken. Also, it's important to look at with the polls, what was the question asked as well. All right, I want to go back to this clip here. Let's go back. And then the same thing with this infrastructure bill. Biden and Harris are going on a victory tour. They're going to different cities talking about the bill, which is what you have to do, constantly message and explain to people what's in the bill and how it's going to help them. And that's something that did not happen after the stimulus package of 2009. It was about 2009 under President Obama. They were so busy, and Biden was telling them, we need to do a victory tour. We need to explain to people what's in the package. That didn't happen. And then also after the Affordable Health Care Act passed, they really didn't have a victory tour, but really have a tour to explain to people what's in the Affordable Health Care Act and really how it's going to impact them. You have to have constant messaging. You had the rise of the Tea Party in the 2010 midterm elections, heavily funded by the Koch brothers, and one of the Koch brothers died. So we'll leave it at that. I won't say anything negatively about one of the Koch brothers who died, who helped fund this insurrection called the Tea Party. And we can draw a direct line from the Tea Party to the January 6th insurrection. But, you know, also Clarence Thomas's wife helped fund the Tea Party. His white wife helped fund the Tea Party also. So Democrats lost about 63 seats in the House of Representatives as a backlash to the Affordable Health Care Act, and also the fact that President Obama was black as well. It was a white supremacist backlash disguised as quote unquote the Tea Party. If you go study that history. Okay, let's go back to this clip.
And we came back 8 years later and ran on the Affordable Care Act and won the majority back. That's what it's going to take.
Let me back this up a minute here.
We came back seats. Democrats around if we do that. But if you sit back like we did with the Affordable Care Act, we lost 63 seats. Democrats did over the Affordable Care Act because we didn't bother to tell people what we had done.
Mm-hmm.
And we came back 8 years later and ran on the Affordable Care Act and won the majority back. That's what it's going to take.
Congressman, progressives were willing to compromise on the infrastructure bill, willing to go ahead and take a vote on it without getting absolute assurances from moderates that they would vote for the Build Back Better plan. Now Manchin is signaling with the new news about the rise in inflation that is also a concern to him. They've already put it off because they say that they cannot take a vote on in good conscience without getting a new scoring from the CBO. The CBO is basically saying that they cannot tell us when they can provide it, and it could be weeks away. Where do you think things stand on the Build Back Better plan?
Well, the Build Back Better plan has to pass the House first. First things first.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe Manchin is not in the House.
Exactly.
So the progressives worked with the moderates and the Congressional Black Caucus, with the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, the Asian Pacific Islanders. We got 8 distinct groups in our caucus that we have to work with. The New Dems. All of these people work together to find common ground. We can only lose 4 votes in the House. And so what we had to do, then each group had to get outside of its comfort zone. I met with the moderates and I pleaded with them, get outside of your comfort zone so we can pass them. 1 hour later, I met with the Congressional Black Caucus and pleaded with them, get outside of your comfort zone. I'm very comfortable with the way you are doing it your way. We need to find common ground. So, and we all did. So the progressives give up something, the moderates give up something, and that's what we're going to do to pass the bill in the House. Now, in the House, the bill gets to the Senate. Then I hope my Democrats in the Senate, I hope that the White House will get engaged. I hope that these numbers that I have already seen on Build Back Better that says, some said that it will have $600 billion in deficit reduction. Another one says it might have $1.2 trillion in deficit reduction. I don't know what it's going to be, but all of us are going to have to trust somebody. I'm now the CBO scorer, and not is anybody else in the House or the Senate. So if these people tell you that that's what it's going to be, we've been relying on them ever since I've been in the Congress, so why won't we rely on them this time?
So, Congressman, I would like to ask you if you are happy with the Build Back Better plan and where the numbers landed. Many of the things that Black people really, really cared about and were promised to them got cut back substantially. In addition to things that other people cared about, got cut back substantially in order to get the moderates on board. Are you happy with where that bill landed?
We cut back. We did not cut out. And that's where I think we have to really focus attention. It's like I told my caucus when I met with them, I used to work for Southern Governor. And one time we gave speeches at the same time in different places, and we were saying what turned out to be the opposite. I went in to offer my resignation, and the governor said to me, look at that glass on the table. It's half full of water. Because of your experiences, it's half empty. Because of my experiences, it's half full. Go back to your office and let's see what we can do to fill the glass up. So that's what we were trying to do here. These scores are 10-year scores. And if it takes 10 years for something to score, let's cut it back and do it for 2 years and see where we stand after 2 years. So we didn't cut things out, we cut them back. And so I think it'll be, that's why you ought not be using numbers. Because anytime you get a number, it's a 10-year number. And some of these things we may not need to do beyond 2 years. So that to me is what the public has to understand. I'm going to do everything I can to get the public to understand that's what we've done here. Now, Charles, you remember 2-3 weeks ago, every time I turned on my TV, somebody was yelling, you just cut $30 billion from the HBCUs. Nothing happened like that.
Exactly.
$30 billion was cut from the projection of $40 billion that the president said he was going to do over a 4-year period. So we said, let's do it 1/4 of it. This is his first year, so let's do 10 and come back and get the other 30. Maybe 10 more in the second year, 10 more in the third year, and 10 more in the fourth year. We didn't cut anything out. We just did 1 year of HBCU rather than 4 years.
Let me pause it right there for just a second. So it's important to note that the proposed $45 billion was not for specifically HBCUs. It was HBCUs and MSIs. MSIs are minority serving institutions. There are 101 HBCUs. There were 500 MSIs, probably close to 600. When you have HBCUs and MSIs, you're talking about over 600 institutions. And that was proposed funding over 10 years. Okay. So you cut it back to 1 year and then you come back and extend it for additional years. But the whole way the story was reported was incorrect in the first place. And that's what we found out. Roland Martin reported on this. That's what we found out. The whole way it was being reported, the article from the Associated Press, and then picked up by New York, by Newsweek, and then misrepresented by a lot of media, including a lot of African-American media, because then they just translated HBCUs and MSIs to just mean HBCUs and didn't define what MSIs are. Most people don't even know what the hell MSIs are. They don't know you're talking about over 600 institutions, but there are only 101 HBCUs. But at the same time, HBCUs has gotten $4.7 billion in funding this year. This is something that Cedric Richmond explained to Charlemagne on Charlemagne's show. His show separate from The Breakfast Club. And HBCUs have never gotten $4.7 billion in 1 year before. But very few people want to talk about that. Okay, let's continue.
Just cut $30 billion from the HBCUs. Nothing happened like that. $30 billion was cut from the projection of $40 billion that the president said he was going to do over a 4-year period. So we said, let's do it 1/4 of it. This is his first year, so let's do 10 and come back and get the other 30. Maybe 10 more in the second year, 10 more in the third year, and 10 more in the fourth year. We didn't cut anything out. We just did 1 year of HBCU rather than 4 years.
Wait, are you suggesting that the bill as written still provides the $40 billion over the 10 years?
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting it provides $10 billion. And we'll look at next time and next time. That's the way you score. We said something, I spent a little time in law school. When the camel gets his nose under the tent, maybe he can work himself and get the hump later.
Right. But I only have a few minutes left here. I want to ask you about something. Last time I had you on the show, you were very optimistic that we were going to get something passed on the George Floyd Policing Act. Those negotiations fell apart. There was finger pointing on both sides saying that, that we're not negotiating in good faith. How do you feel now that it looks like we're not going to get anything done on a federal policing act?
I have not given up on it. You know, we'll be back in January. We get these economic things done, get people in a better frame of mind, children are taken care of. You know, the child tax credit will expire December the 31st. We get this bill passed and the bill back better. There's a full additional year for child credit, tax credits on it. Let's get that done. People get in a better frame of mind. And then I want to revisit the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And this time, I hope people will join me in trying to get things done incrementally. We got the Civil Rights Act in 64. We didn't get the Voting Rights Act until 65. We didn't get the Fair Housing Law until 68. We now got them all. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So if we can get some things done up to George Floyd, outlaw the chokehold, outlaw no-knock entries, put a registry in place so people who violate the laws can't do something bad, get fired one place and go and get hired another place. That would be a start. And so what we lost this thing for arguing over qualified immunity, and the moment I said, let's get started on this, everybody started giving me Hades. Well, now we got nothing.
Representative Clyburn, I want to thank you for your time. I'm kind of run out of time here. I hope that we get back to talking about a federal policing act, but it seems very hard to do if we're going to be down to an election year where hard votes are harder to come by. But anyway, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me. Just remember, we passed it in the House.
Exactly. Yep. So the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act passed in the House of Representatives March 3rd, 2021 by a vote of 220 to 212. 212 Republicans voted no on the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Okay. 1, 2, back in May 2021, when the talks between Senator Cory Booker and Representative Karen Bass and Senator Tim Scott, when qualified immunity was a sticking point, was a problem they could not come to an agreement on, the Republicans and the Democrats and the representatives. Representative James Clyburn came out and said, we don't have to get qualified immunity now, take it out, get the rest of the bill passed. I said he's absolutely correct. They didn't do that, and you didn't get the bill passed in the Senate. They couldn't come to an agreement. Tim Scott lied months later and said the sticking point was defund the police. Defund the police wasn't an issue in the bill, and the bill actually gives more funding to police. 2 police organizations came out and said defund the police was not an issue. Senator Tim Scott lied. I said back in May, take qualified immunity out, because that's not the most important thing in the bill. The most important thing in the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is lowering the federal standard to prosecute police officers from willful intent down to negligence. Because when you can lower the standard that's needed to prosecute police officers, you can, 1, prosecute more police officers, 2, ultimately convict more police officers. We're talking about criminal convictions. Qualified immunity is a civil lawsuit. Nobody's going to prison over qualified immunity. It's a civil lawsuit. So I said back in May, if qualified immunity is the sticking point, take it out, get the rest of the bill passed. They didn't do that. They didn't get, and it passed the House, but it hasn't passed the Senate. I said that months ago. Representative James Clyburn was correct. You don't have to get everything passed in one bill. If you got to break it up into 3-4 bills to get stuff passed, break it up into 3 or 4 bills and get the stuff passed. Read this article here from NBC News. What's in the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act? Here's what the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act would do. Read this article here, NBC News, April 12, 2021. It goes through and breaks it down. We talked about this here before. Okay. Make it easier to prosecute police officers accused of misconduct by lowering the legal standard from willfulness to recklessness. That's criminal prosecution. That's a bigger deterrent than a civil lawsuit suing for monetary damages. Because one, police unions are going to help the officers raise money to pay the civil lawsuit, to pay the monetary damages. One. Two, insurance companies are going to start selling police misconduct liability insurance, just like insurance companies sell insurance policies to cities. A lot of major cities have insurance policies, so if they get sued, the insurance company pays out. Okay, so if insurance companies have insurance policies, they sell insurance for your dog or your cat called pet insurance, in case your dog or cat have to have major surgery, expensive surgeries, things like this. You think they're not going to sell police misconduct liability insurance to 800,000 law enforcement officers and make money from that? Of course they will. So a lot of this nonsense, and a lot of the activists were jumping on Clyburn saying, no, we need to get qualified immunity. You don't think you get qualified immunity right now. What's more important is criminal prosecution. That's a bigger deterrent. Locking police officers up, sending them to prison, being stripped of their rights, losing their job, not being able to be a police officer again, in some cases losing their pensions, having a felony conviction is a bigger deterrent than a civil lawsuit. That's a bigger deterrent than a civil lawsuit. Okay, so read that. All right, look, we got to get out of here. We're over time. If you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me / the AHN Show. Okay, and this is our official Cash App account, $ the AHN Show. When you go to it, it'll say Michael and show my picture there. Our official Cash App tag is $ the AHN Show, SHOW. African American business owners, if you want to advertise with the African History Network, email us at ahnshow@africanhistorynetwork.com. ahnshow@africanhistorynetwork.com. A current promotion is buy 1 month, get 1 month. Buy 1 month, get 2 months free. Buy 1 month, get 2 months free. Okay. We have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever.